Well, welcome back to the So There I Was podcast. I'm your host, Travis Womack again. Today's a very special episode. We have Lieutenant Colonel retired Dave Grossman, the founder of Grossman on Truth and author of many books. Several to highlight is On Killing. If you've served a day in the Army or any branch, you've probably heard that book. It's required reading at the Naval Academy. Is that correct, Dave?
Or On Killing and On Combat, both Marine Corps commandants required reading
right.
list.
So highly recommended and many other things. I read it as my book report when I went to OCS in 2012. Also On Combat and then On Spiritual Combat and many other things. So we'll definitely talk about those today. And obviously, you do a lot of other speaking, but welcome to the show and glad you can make the time to be here.
My pleasure, Travis. Truly my pleasure, my honor.
So today's going to be kind of a little shift, but same topic of the struggle of any veteran with the impact of taking someone's life, and kind of once we get out, or even when we're in, I mean, active duty suicide is a real thing too, and kind of with your experience, you're a psychology professor at West Point for years, and all your research with writing the books for On Killing and On Combat, I just kind of want to pick your brain on what you've learned and kind of take away, and maybe we might have a new book on suicide before all we know. But
just my background though, Travis, I'm an old OCS grad, just like you. Came up through the ranks, 82nd Airborne Division, enlisted in 1974. So kind of a generation before you. It was a good ride, and I'm an Army Ranger, an infantry officer, and ended up getting selected to teach at West Point and I had lost a brother to suicide. I lost two nephews to suicide. It's a subject that I studied intensely, and I think the most important information about it once you see it just comes together. But all this study I never knew until recent years, and boom, the connection comes together between. We'll talk more about sleep deprivation and suicide.
Absolutely.
And the critical book in so many ways is On Combat. We were saying maybe we'll get back together again later after you finished On Combat and talk about that too. But this is such a vital subject, and one of the things to kind of address this whole "so there I was" dynamic, and the laughter. People don't understand that laughter says this has no power over me.
True.
Laughter can be cruel. Laughter could be inappropriate, but most of the time, laughter is very, very healthy. And I talk about this in my book on spiritual combat, because laughter says this has no power over me. I can laugh about it. So we need to understand how healthy that is. And when like I said, you're civilians hear you talking and laughing about it, then they're blown away. Well, they don't understand. They don't matter. They don't. It's good to be among friends and to understand there's nothing wrong with you. There's so much what On Combat's about. Is so many people say, I thought there was something wrong with me. And this is universal: tunnel vision, auditory exclusion, slow motion time, memory gaps, memory distortions, and but when we talk about suicide, there's kind of a myth that I'd like to confront up front. We've all heard something along the lines that 22 veterans a day take their life, and one's too many. But the word veteran and combat veteran are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Veteran means anybody ever served. In the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, the early 70s, they drafted everybody. Elvis Presley was drafted. He served 2 years. If Elvis was alive, and if he killed himself, he'd be one of those 22 veterans a day take their life.
Mm-hmm.
So of those 22, the vast majority are 70, 80, 90-year-old men. And suicide among the elderly, totally different topic.
Oh, yeah.
But one is one too many. Of the 22 a day, only one or two are from the current war, the GWAT, but that's one too many. My nephew was one, your friend was one, and that's one too many. So this idea that they're all suicidal and they're all broken is kind of this myth that we have to weave our way through. I call it the no pity party, no macho man.
Yeah.
On the one hand, is this expectation there's going to be a problem. Oh, they're all broken. They all have PTSD. They're all suicidal. They're all no, they're not. No, they're not. They're stronger. A new greatest generation are rising up.
Yeah, it's definitely a stigma.
No pity party, no macho man.
Yeah.
The idea that I'm going to macho it out. The dogs are good. They get better every day.
Yeah.
And call for help and get friends. And that's what you're doing with your network. You're setting up with your veterans and your friends and an enormous amount of firefights that you've been in, how much you have to bring to the table for people. But one of the things kind of out front is it's a pet topic of mine. I lost a nephew. It's a GWAT vet, a Marine vet. And one of the things, my wife has had 2 service dogs, and we got kind of a bargain on them, and they still cost like $8,000.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
The service dog is just about the single best thing you could do. I was at a conference recently of a police suicide, the Wounded Blue conference, and we had all kinds of experts there, and we had a conference and talking and presenting, and nobody could think of a single case where somebody with a service dog killed themselves. Not once. They just wouldn't do that to the dog. Several people said, I know somebody had the gun in their mouth and said, no, I can't do that to my dog.
Yeah.
And the dog was their lifeline. But the thing of it is, that dog cost like, $10,000, $20,000.
Right.
And that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. I want everybody to know this. This is a life-saving nugget we put right out front. There is no great regulation of service dogs. There are no laws. No. There's 2 things they're authorized to ask you. It said a service dog has it been trained to help you, but they don't have a right to ask any of that kind of stuff. So what do you tell me? I want to have a Rolex. I want everybody to have a Rolex. If you want to pay for a Rolex, that's great, but I want to have a Timex out there.
Yeah.
If you want to sell a Rolex, good for you. You want to buy a Rolex, good for you, but you ought to have room for a Timex. Mm-hmm. And so what you do, the primary thing that dog does for us is, number one, he gets you up in the morning and gets you outside. You got to go poop. Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Or you gotta have it cleaned up. Come on, let's go outside. But they get us up, they get us outside. But here's the most important thing of all. A dog is a pack animal. They're not meant to be alone. If you got one dog and you leave him alone at home, it's solitary confinement. Yeah. It's torture. You got 2 dogs, you leave them alone at home, they're good to go.
Yeah.
Well, we are pack animals too. Mm-hmm. We're not meant to be alone. What that dog does for you is you are never alone. They go to the bathroom with you. I mean, you go to the bathroom with them, right?
It's like a 2-year-old. They follow you around, thinking of the door.
They sleep with you. They sleep curled up beside you. They, you've got that contact to somebody with you when you sleep all the time. They sit at your feet on the airplane. They're at your feet at the restaurant. They're with you all the time. So any dog, just be sure they're very, very well trained.
Yeah.
Don't let them embarrass you. Don't let it embarrass us. That's a real service dog, because their dog's well trained. You tell them to sit, you tell them down, drop the leash on their back, and they stay there.
Walk away. Yeah.
It's a good dog. So anybody can have a service dog. You don't need a freaking Rolex. Yeah. You can have a Timex, and boom, you've got 99% of the value you're going to get out of that dog just by virtue of getting a good, well-trained dog. Put a vest on him. Go to Amazon.com, order a vest.
Yeah.
And you know what? We've got a little dog that we're taking places now, and we've got a service dog in training patch. Mm-hmm. So there's service dog on one side of the vest, in training on the other side of the vest. People look at them, a service dog in training. They're not going to be perfect. We don't expect that.
It gives you an alibi or an out.
Yeah.
If they bark or pee or like,
And the thing about a service dog is, I'd be in airports and I'd see a service dog, and they were never happy. They always kind of had their head down, and they're not a dog. Well, what I realized was they're working. Don't bother me. I'm at work. And when that service dog has a vest on, nobody's going to pet them. Nobody's going to feed them except you, the owner. Right. Nobody's going to feed them. You don't eat with the vest on. You don't get scratchings and lovings and huggings with the vest on. You do not poop or pee with the vest on. When that vest's on, I'm at work.
Yeah.
And that dog becomes a different creature, and they learn that
I
got to be at work. You take that vest off, and they're a totally different creature. And while that vest's on, nobody pets them. They're at work. They're with you, and their job is to be your constant companion. I think if we just get one life-saving concept out there, it's the dog, and then the sleep dynamic we're going to talk about with suicide. But that's my 2 bits on the whole service That makes sense.
It makes complete sense, and it's a great start to the actually kind of first kind of topic I'd like to hit with you is lead in at least is shame,
Right.
because I think people have a lot of shame with the idea of that, or money wise or whatever, but also the kind of the hit what we hit on earlier, before we started was, um, if you're a vet, or combat vet, I think there's obviously a vast majority of veterans have never been shot at or shot, and that's nobody's fault. You don't get to pick the fight; it comes to you. But in I think we have this stigma of, I had a guest on the podcast a while back, and he served after Desert Storm, but before 9/11, his entire service. And he's like, "Am I really even a vet?" And he struggled with it. We talked about that, and I think that we tell these stories, and like, I mean, I have some crazy stories from with bullets flying and whatever, but I think just training stories. When you go to the field, the best stories happen in the field. Personally, that's where the stupidity reigns, and um, I think we tell those stories. I was a paratrooper, and I can tell a story of jumping out of a plane, my parachute was cigarette rolled, and I'm free falling and panicking, and changing my pants, wanting to halfway down, and pulling my reserve, and all these things, and hitting the ground, and be like, all right, that was close. And then like 10 minutes later, we got night vision on, and like dying and laughing, because near death and the paratrooper mindset is just, we think it's funny, but like you tell that story, at the a lunch break at the bank or wherever you're at, and everyone's like, Travis, that's not funny. You shouldn't laugh about that. And so you hit on laughter. So I'd like to hit on both of those a little bit more in depth, is kind of the indirect or not meant to, but judgment and shame that comes to people, veterans particularly, and like how we just kind of just shut down sharing our, MRE bomb stories, or the, and
And
all
you're
that.
right. And that's where, we've always had that. The Vietnam veterans, and that's one of the key things in On Killing, was how very, very bad we treated the Vietnam vets. They were accused, they were spit on, they'd be jet lagged, they'd come home. It really did happen. The big burly Green Berets spit on by this hippie, it's an
Yeah.
urban myth. It never happened. Yes, it did happen.
Oh yeah.
It happened a lot. One guy told me his mom talked about, just in passing, how ugly they were to Vietnam veterans on campus. And his mom said, I am so ashamed of what I did to that veteran. But they did. They spit on him. They condemned him. They attacked him. And so, however bad it might be, it was not nearly as bad as a Vietnam veteran was.
True.
And all veterans have had that. We've got the VFW, we got the American Legion. They're there for a reason, because veterans can generally only talk with veterans. And so even if you don't need it, there's value in you being part of these larger organizations that have been there to fill that need from the beginning. And they're worthy institutions, like I said, the American Legion, the VFW, but there's something else to talk about. The shame and society, not wanting to hear the story. It's terribly important. But let me lay a foundation. Alcohol and suicide have always been closely related. Mm-hmm. Now, every living organism has a powerful drive for self-preservation. To intentionally take your life is really, really hard. You have to overcome this powerful biological aversion. Now, alcohol creates impaired judgment.
Yep.
And you got to have profoundly impaired judgment to make such a stupid decision. And alcohol is and suicide's related. But the point I want to make, and the prominent point on suicide, and my whole input, is the link between sleep deprivation and suicide. Sleep deprivation is like being drunk. 24 hours without sleep, and you have impaired judgment equal to 0.10 above legally drunk blood alcohol level. Mm-hmm. Sleep deprivation makes us stupid. When you're drunk, in a few hours, it's going to pass. When you're sleep deprived, it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Mhm.
And you know, if you're sleep deprived, you make stupid decisions. So I lost a brother and two nephews to suicide. The West Point psych professor has studied the subject intensely, and it absolutely pisses me off
Yeah.
that I never knew until the last 5 years or so about the link between sleep deprivation and suicide. It's always been there.
Yeah.
And the best meta study on suicide says not only is sleep deprivation a key factor in suicide, it's the most remediable factor. Look, we can't help your finances right now. We can't help your relationship right now, but we can, by God, get you a good night's sleep. Now,
Yeah.
take this in context. It's more complex, but you say take 2 aspirin, call me in the morning. Well, take an Ambien, call me in the morning. And that's the most remediable thing. Boom, right now, get them a good, safe night's sleep. And you tell them, I will tile the lodge. I'll be your security. I'll be, I will sleep at your doorstep tonight, and I will give you rest. I will give you safety. I will give you security. The greatest gift you can give to somebody who is suicidal is safe, peaceful rest. And that's what that dog does for you.
Yeah.
That dog curls up next to you, and the dog's on alert, and and always watching, and
Yeah.
the dog's got your six, the dog's your LPOP, but getting that sleep is so stinking important. And there's a couple of nuggets we can give you on sleep management, but just understand that terrible link that we didn't know about. So where I first started looking for it was there was a study on which professions in the military were most likely to commit suicide. And the
Interesting.
least likely to commit suicide were pilots because they have a
Sleep.
culture of sleep management. And the whole aviation
Interesting.
community has got that culture of sleep management. They got the lowest suicide rate. Right behind them were truck drivers. And truck drivers have a culture of sleep management. In the civilian world, you're required by federal law
Oh,
to
yeah.
get.
Yeah.
Truck drivers have a real culture of sleep management. Gonna be on the road tomorrow. Get some sleep. Roger out. So, but when we start seeing professions, aboard ship, the one with the lowest suicide rate among the ship is the corpsman. I didn't understand that. A Navy guy told me, well, he is not a watchstander. The Navy's got these bizarre 200-year-old
Cycles.
shifts that they do, these insane 3-century-old shifts that they use
Yeah.
that are no longer, and you're always off cycle. You're always sleep deprived. You're always shifting. You're always jet lagged.
Yep.
Anytime you change from day to night, you're jet lagged. And he said the corpsman does office hours, and they're not a watchstander. Of course, they have a lower suicide rate. They have
Right.
much better sleep hygiene. And so this whole dynamic of sleep hygiene tied into it, and understanding how important it is to our wellness, and how we've been blindsided by this. We don't understand. It makes you stupid. And taking your life is a very,
Interesting.
very stupid thing. And you have to have profoundly impaired judgment. You have to biologically impaired. Deep depression, alcohol, and sleep deprivation. These are all biological impairments. And these are all critical components in suicide. So this whole dynamic, there's something we can do right now about it. I talk about, no pity party, no macho man. Don't have an expectation there's a danger, but if there is something, deal with it,
Yeah.
and have faith that help can help. How can we help other people? We can't help ourselves. And what you really do is weave in a path between two obstacles. And at the end of the path is post-traumatic growth. We've all heard about post-traumatic stress disorder, although there's a real tendency to call it post-traumatic stress injury. And that's better. It's much better because you recover from an injury. Hemingway said, life breaks everyone, and usually we're stronger in the broken spots. So post-traumatic stress injury. But at the end of the path is post-traumatic growth. That's the World War II generation, the greatest generation. And that's what we're talking about, coming out the other end stronger, sharing those stories, sharing up pain. One of the things I've got in on combat is pain shared is pain divided, joy shared is joy multiplied. That's what we do at funerals.
Yeah.
We share our pain, but we also laugh at funerals. We tell stories at funerals. At my dad's funeral, we were laughing and crying and laughing.
Those are the best funerals when it's
It is.
when it's
And
like,
what we're doing is you're multiplying your joy and dividing your pain. And when we gather together and we tell these stories, we're dividing our pain and we're multiplying our joy. And it's such a powerful dynamic. So these are all things that we can do. But this idea of a service dog. My nephew was 18 years old. He killed himself, obviously not a vet. He was at home. The new video game came out, and he locked himself in his bedroom with a big pile of snacks and sodas and played the new game. And on the third day, he killed himself.
Wow.
No note, no trauma. We were just devastated. We were just absolute.
Wow.
Was it some bizarre gun accident? What was happening here? But now we go back in retrospect and we look at sleep deprivation. And you can't miss it. So here's the deal on this. Well, why we're not getting the word out about this? Turning off the video games. You know, a sergeant major, I trained a infantry battalion that was punching out to Iraq. And the sergeant major talked to me. They had a previous deployment. They were in a barracks environment at night, but they were doing daytime combat patrols during the day. So they had a semi-barracks environment. And he said, I told the troops, it's lights out after 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
He said, if I find you up playing video games after 10 o'clock, I'm going to take your video games. Yeah. He said, in a week, I had a closet overflowing with video games. Mm-hmm. He said, these are good troops. They wouldn't disobey an order, but they cannot play those stupid damn games. So you're Skyping with your girlfriend, you're downloading and binge watching shows, you've got the video games, you got the social media. All of those are multi-billion-dollar institutions who want to sell their product. The head of Netflix said the number one competitor is sleep. The corporate policy of Netflix is to steal your sleep. They don't care that they're killing people. So here's the key on sleep. Sleep's a key factor in suicide. It's a key factor in traffic deaths. Let's go back to suicide now. Teenage suicides have exploded. Teenagers, 10, 11, 12-year-old girls, teenage suicide rate is tripled per capita in the last decade.
Wow.
And here's parenting 101 for the 21st century. When you send your kid to bed at night, take their cell phone away from them. No cell phone in the room, no laptop in the room. They have got to go to the room and sleep. So a cop came up to me during a break in one of my presentations. He said, I had one of those teenagers. He said she was a good girl. She was an A student. She said, Dad, it's embarrassing. You don't have to take my cell phone every night. You can trust me. It's your family policy. It's cell phone that charge you, go to bed. He said, okay, I trust you. Keep your cell phone. A little later, she took her life. He said, my little girl took her life. And we never knew the hell she was living in until we looked at the text messages on her cell phone. Night after night of ceaseless, relentless, vicious bullying. Yeah. And he can't just ignore that. We're not wired that way. He said it was heartrending to see her up all night long trying to defend herself. He said, I immediately knew my little girl was bullied to death. What I didn't understand until now, she was sleep deprived. She was sleep deprived, tormented, and bullied to death in front of my eyes, and I let it happen. He said, I can't ignore that text message in the middle of the night. How can we expect our kids to? He said, the one thing on earth I could have done for my little girl was take her cell phone every night and let her turn off all the bad stuff in this world. So around the world, every nation, every demographic group, except the Amish, suicides have exploded.
Even some of that.
What's the new factor? It's what we have is a global epidemic of sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
Around the globe, decade after decade, we brought traffic deaths down. Airbags, seatbelts, medical technology, traffic deaths down. For the last decade, traffic deaths have exploded. What is the new factor? Sleep deprivation is a major factor in suicide and traffic death. Number one, number two, killer of our cops. Sleep deprivation is a key factor in the opiate epidemic.
Yeah.
Well, why opiates? Prescription fentanyl's an opiate. Why are opiates a drug of choice? You know, we have 4 times as many people die every year from fentanyl as Vietnam. We have 4 Vietnams a year from fentanyl deaths in America. And everybody has Narcan, and we're saving their lives the majority of the time. The problem is actually much bigger than that. Well, sleep deprivation creates chronic pain. You don't sleep, you're going to hurt.
Yeah.
Doc, I heard all the time, give me a pill to fix. You don't need a pill. You need more sleep, and you have got to stop the damn caffeine shortly after lunch. The mega doses of caffeine after lunch are stopping us from getting deep cycle sleep. And lack of deep cycle sleep creates chronic pain. I'm a huge science geek. My favorite
Yeah.
website is sciencedaily.com. Check it every day
I
religiously.
will.
A major study just recently is treating sleep problems reduced opiate seeking behavior. Now, you and I were talking about the CPAP
Yeah.
and what a revolution that is. A Navy SEAL E9, Navy SEAL Master Chief, told me one time. He said, I had 9 years of bad sleep. He said, everybody in the team complained about my snoring. Finally, I was ordered to go to the sleep lab. Early in the night, they woke me up. Master Chief, you have sleep apnea. Put the CPAP on, go back to sleep. He said, I woke up the next morning with the first good night's sleep in 9 years.
Yep.
He said, there are no words to explain how good that felt. He said, no meal I've ever eaten, no sex I've ever had, nothing in my
It's that
life
good.
ever as good as a good night's sleep. That's what that CPAP can do for us. Go to that sleep lab, get wired up, make it healthy sleep. The sleep deprivation is a key factor in suicide, traffic deaths, and the opiate epidemic. Again, why opiates? Why are they the drug of choice? Pain and sleep deprivation. And these are the three major killers of our kids. They're the three major killers of our teens. They're the three major killers of our society. It was just in the news, American males' life expectancy dropped again. And the reason why life expectancy of American males, suicide, traffic deaths, and opiate overdoses.
Yep.
If you avoid those three things, the average life expectancy is in the high 80s.
Yeah.
Instead of being an average of 76, it should be in the 80s or 90s. Avoid three things: suicide, traffic deaths, and opiate overdoses. And what's the new factor? Sleep deprivation, a global epidemic. Not only that, one last thing. I really recommend a book by Dr. Matthew Walker called Why We Sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And he identifies all of this and much more online. But the link between sleep deprivation and Alzheimer's is overwhelming. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Well, you have a decade of Alzheimer's first, you idiot. Globally, Alzheimer's is exploding. And the new factor is this global epidemic of sleep deprivation and this industry that wants to steal your sleep. And that's where we are. So just understand the bigger picture that all of this fits into when we get the sleep dynamic in place and these predators who are wanting to sell their product to us.
Well, I'd like to go back on, you mentioned the CPAP, and I have one myself, as I mentioned. I think there's, it kind of goes back to the original part of shame and judgment, I guess. But because there's also, I'm sure you have, your generation had the same problem where you saw somebody with a medal, you're like, what did that do to get that? And I think there's the modern version of that with the CPAP is, you're only going to do it because you're going to try to trick the VA or get money from the VA. And it's like, it has nothing to, I mean, that's a benefit if you get that, but it's just the, judging someone, oh, well, Bobby over there, who's never done anything, never been shot at, never been blown up, he's just chasing 50% from the VA. When it's like, no, you need it too, because when we're deployed, you gave away our position when you slept, and I struggle with that same emotion, kind of that, like, no, I'm good. And, and my ex-wife actually had a video of me sleeping, and like, I was literally just laying there on my back, like Dracula. And I'm just took a breath in, and 17 seconds went by where I didn't budge, didn't exhale. And then like my body, like, and then she's like, you need to go see a doctor. I'm like, no, I'm good. She's like, go see a doctor. You shouldn't be pausing in your sleep. And the same thing, I went to the sleep study, and they woke me up after about 4 hours. They said, all right, put this on. And I remember I woke up at 7 in the morning that morning. I was like, I feel amazing. And I would caution anybody, I don't know if you have one, Dave, or not, but it's not the Darth Vader mask. They have that. It depends on how you sleep. I have just the simple things that go on my nose, and life is easy. And but there's 100 different types of masks out there and whatever, but it has changed my life. I can fully attest that pursuing that, and for the past, I got that 2019, So the past 4 years has been the best sleep I've ever had. So, what I'd like to ask you though, on from your experience and studies and stuff, is, what is some identifiable traits of someone who's sleep deprived, other than falling asleep at stoplights,
Right.
falling asleep at
Right.
odd times at home. I'd sit on the couch and fall asleep at 6:30 mid sentence.
You
So
know,
just kind of on that.
the major trait is bad judgment. You do stupid stuff. You say stupid stuff. Your judgment is profoundly impaired. And that's a huge factor. It's just like alcohol. It was a fire chief. He was telling me that he was doing all kinds of things. He was sleep deprived, working extra shifts. And his wife said, "We need to talk about what you said last night." And he had no memory of it. And she told him this vicious, evil, horrible stuff he was telling his wife. And he had no memory of doing it. And he knew what it was. It was sleep deprivation. It had gotten so bad and so severe. In most of us in Ranger School, on the third day without sleep, we were hallucinating.
Oh yeah.
But in Ranger School, tell you about hallucinations on the third day without sleep. On the third day without sleep, you are flat psychotic.
Yeah.
You will see things and hear things that are not there. And the world's full of people that are going days without sleep. They play the new video game all night. They stagger off to work or school. They play the new game all night. Now they're on the third day without sleep. And again, we know from personal experience, you'll see things and hear things that are not there. And this is all around us. So if you get drunk, it seldom lasts more than an hour or two. But so here's the key things. More important than that is really what good sleep hygiene looks like. Now, these are things we should have learned in the second grade. My second grade teacher told us cigarettes kill people. I went home and hid my dad's cigarettes.
Yeah.
And these are the kind of things we have to know. So first off, as an adult, you need at least 7 hours of sleep a night. You got it. I shoot for 9. And I'm 67 years old. I'm on the road constantly. I'm in 3 or 4 cities a week. I'm doing my thing. I love what I do. But my sleep is a little chaotic. When I get a chance to catch sleep a little longer, I do. One of the best things you can do is get one of the fitness trackers that tracks your sleep.
Mm-hmm.
That was a couple of years back, but the best fitness trackers and the latest research I saw was the Fitbit and the Aura, the ring. The Air Force is buying all these rings and they're having their pilots wear them and they're tracking their pilot sleep. I mean, you're flying a $500 million aircraft, get some sleep. Roger out. Football coaches are using them. It's just in the sporting world, sleep management is the secret weapon. If you got a team that's got sleep and the other team doesn't, you're going to kick their tail all day long. So what the coach does, it's the college coach on every different team you can imagine, sleep is a key performance component. The college coach has everybody wearing a Fitbit, and they're tracking their sleep. So, and if you're goofing off late at night, the coach is going to hammer you. So what they do, one guy wears 6 Fitbits and goes to bed, and the other guys will go party. Well, the coach figures that out real fast. But one of the best investments you can make is this track your sleep. Now, the study said that the actual hours of sleep was pretty good. The phases of sleep were not that good. Take the whole phases of sleep so that the times when you're actually awake and you don't know it, I think you should listen to those. I did my Fitbit, and it tracks your sleep and it says you've gotten 5 hours of sleep for the last 2 months. You can't keep doing this. You got to fix this. So the first thing is the amount of time and tracking that sleep and knowing how much you need to have. But the critical component is this: if you just do 2 things. Number one, our bodies are designed to sleep in total darkness, absolute darkness. A major study in a sleep lab, totally dark room, bathroom lights on and the door is shut. The light coming under the crack of the bathroom door. Enough light to stop your body from producing the melatonin you need. Now, melatonin is a hormone the body creates.
Right.
And it's created in the dark. If you're not in the dark, the body can't produce melatonin. So I'm I train fire and EMS and the fire service, they all they're in the bunk house, they sleep. Cops, I'm a reserve cop. Cops, the firefighters get paid to sleep. The only firefighters and prostitutes make money in bed. So so uh, so there's always somebody in every bunkhouse who's, they call him the dark Nazi, and he spray paints the windows black from the inside. Well, the dark Nazi is right, guys. But my wife frowns on spray painting windows black from the inside. So the trick is the sleep mask. One of the greatest sleep hacks you will ever get is to wear that sleep mask. There's a mask on Amazon. That's my personal favorite. My wife likes one. My grandson likes another. But there's a mask on Amazon with 85,000 reviews. It's the number one recommended mask. It's the one I like. My grandson goes off to college. Now, he's heard my class. He's helped in my class. What's most likely to kill my grandson? Suicide, traffic deaths, and opiate overdoses. Well, it's the greatest gift I give my grandson, a good night's sleep. So I sent him off to college with several different kinds of sleep masks. I said, find the one you like and start using it. And I called him up, hey, buddy, how's it going? Oh, you get enough sleep? Yes, sir. Are you in the sleep mask? Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, it got kind of grody. I went along and ordered another one. So the number 2 sleep mask has got like 65,000 reviews. That's how people who never do a review will do a review on their sleep mask. So like you and the CPAP.
Changes your life.
So it was just 3 weeks ago. A cop in Utah, he got the mask from Amazon overnight. The next night he wore the mask. He said he's tracking his sleep on his Fitbit. He said, wow, with that mask on, I got 5 hours of solid, steady sleep for the first time in forever. I said, I think it will be the second night you'll see the difference, because it's the melatonin being created in the dark, and then it's there for you the second night. Let's see how it does. Second night, he said, dude, I got 9 freaking hours of sleep. The second night with that sleep mask on. He said, I've never heard anything like this. So wear that sleep mask, number 1. Number 2, please cut off caffeine shortly after lunch. Caffeine has a half-life in your body of about 5 hours. That means that caffeine you took at 5 p.m. is still at half strength when I go to bed at 10 p.m. And it's making us have bad quality sleep. And what caffeine does, you don't get that deep cycle sleep. And that's what causes Alzheimer's. And that's what causes chronic pain. That if you don't get that deep cycle sleep, caffeine doesn't make us not sleep. It makes it easier to stay awake, harder to have quality sleep. Guard your sleep, protect your sleep. Sleep is that little vacation that waits at the end of every day. And caffeine is the enemy of good sleep. Cut off caffeine shortly after lunch. And there's the source of caffeine is important. The research is there if you want to talk about that. But just those 2 hacks all by themselves will absolutely change your world.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I remember, gosh, it's been a couple of years now. Back in the '90s, I was maybe Sports Illustrated did an article on Pete Sampras, the tennis player. And I may get some of these details. It's been a few days, but in the article talked about how particular he was about sleep. And back then we all had the VCR in our bedroom with the lime blue, or light green. Sorry, what colors mixed up there. Just the clock, and how he would take electric tape and cover that up, and because that was enough to bother him. And I remember reading that article as 15, 16-year-old kid, who actually read Sports Illustrated, and was like, well, that's just crazy. And like, here I am now, like, thinking back how I was casting this judgment on him, like, golly, what a weird guy, but like, look, you in my bedroom right now, I have these shutters I can raise up, and it's like nothing comes through in the window. And then, but like, there's not a single thing in my room that projects light. There's no clock, there's no anything at all. And how much that's affected me, some of that's by accident, just because I live out in the middle of nowhere, and it helps. So I don't have street lights and everything else. But my backyard is just woods for as far as I can see. But I think it's important for people to realize, like, it may seem petty and it may seem weird, and you're going to get some, if you're a guy, or I'm a guy, so I'll speak on guys' behalf, and you have a lady friend over. It may seem weird. We're having fun, whatever it is, and then you're like going to go to sleep, like, all right, cool, I'm gonna get my mask, and like, it's there's a moment there of like, if she's not okay with it, there's the door, you know. But because like for me, it is like guard your sleep, and I do, and it's a very good point, because I think you have to get past those kind of other barriers that have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And I think people just really, really struggle with, oh, what if I have the girlfriend over, you know, she's gonna think I'm weird because I put blackout blinds that aren't very pretty because they're solid gray, and she wants flowers and whatever. Like, who cares? If it's dark, I don't care what the color pattern is, you know.
Yes.
And my kids, same way. I mean, we do it with our kids. And why would we not do it as an adult, you know? Because, you know, they have all these things for kids. My son's room right now, I've got I'll do my daughter's room. Years ago, when she was 2 or 3, sleep was a problem for her, getting her to sleep. I took 55-gallon trash bags and like duct taped them to the inside of her window, and then put a blackout curtain over it. It was like, no, when you're going to bed, you're going to bed.
Yes.
And it was pitch black. And they're like, oh, that's not fair, she'll wake up scared. I'm like, the goal is for her not to wake up.
You know,
You know?
and here's the key. You know, like I do a lot of school safety work. And it was a bunch of East Texas schools.
Mhm.
And it was about school safety, you know, the Uvalde massacre and a whole different topic, school safety. But I told them, we're going to talk about keeping your school safe from that person who'll come and kill our kids. Well, odds are pretty good. None of you have had a kid murdered. But I'll bet you've had a kid commit suicide. And I bet you had kids die in traffic deaths. And if you want to walk out that door and save a kid's life right now, you start teaching sleep hygiene. Mm-hmm. And in the first grade, they should be taught your body is designed to sleep in complete darkness. Teacher says we should sleep in complete darkness. Roger out. These are the things we should know. Teacher says we shouldn't have any caffeine after lunch. These are the things we ought to know. By the way, when we talk about the mask, one of the things people say is, it makes me sweaty. It makes me hot. Your body adjusts, but really it should be dark and cool. Turn the ceiling fan up, turn the temperature down a couple of notches to where that mask is comfortable. Because the research says it should be dark, it should be cool. So, and one other thing is your electronics. I turn them all into the warm light mode. All of your cell phone, your laptop, there's an adjustment on the screen where you can put what's called night watch, and you put it extreme yellow. Now I have my cell phone and my laptop on yellow all the time. I mean, rather than fiddle with it, I'm always on. It's nice golden hue. I like it. I don't mind it. But to make your electronics, you know, electronics have got to be warm. Your bedroom has to be cool, and it's got to be dark. And those are nuggets that we can apply right now. Well, one other thing that I tell people is no more than one drink on the way to bed. Ideally none, but no more than one drink on the way to bed. And once you get to 2 drinks, 2 alcoholic drinks, which is really enough to make you legally drunk, you know, and driving a vehicle. Most of us know 1 drink, you know, we're probably okay. 2, we're over the top. And if a cop stops us, we're in big trouble. Right. Well, this same thing's true with your sleep. Millions of people are hammering themselves with alcohol. And anything is better than that. No more than 1 drink on the way to bed. If you need some help, a little baby dose of melatonin, and touch base with your doc. Now, docs don't like long-term use of Ambien, but anything's better than alcohol. More than 1 drink a night. But
melatonin's over the counter. You can get it at any pharmacy, gummies or pills and tablets and stuff.
Yeah. Now the melatonin, you know, there's a doc online who talked about longevity drugs. I'm 67. I'm pushing the envelope. I'm doing pretty good. And I track that kind of stuff. And he says, as far as the research and the cost and the availability, melatonin is just about one of the best longevity drugs. As we get older, the body produces less and less melatonin. In yeast and worms and mice, the melatonin is demonstrated to improve life expectancy 10 to 15%. Now, my wife's a cynic. She says, okay, the worms in your body will live 10% longer, you know, but so just when you do melatonin, start with an absolute baby dose, smallest dose you can find. And again, it's so useful to wear that Fitbit and to track your sleep. Like the cop I told you, you know, he wore the sleep mask. Boom, he got great sleep. The following night, boom, he got the best sleep he's had in years. And he's tracking that with his fitness tracker. So take a little baby dose of melatonin and see what it's doing to your sleep and your quality of sleep. And if you
It's
need
good
some help,
advice.
it's a natural, it's a natural hormone that the body produces. Start with a baby dose, but no more than one drink of the way to bed. It's so
Yeah.
destructive and harmful to us. And there's so many things that we can be doing to help. That these are the kind of sleep hygiene things that we should have been learning in first grade.
It absolutely is. It's definitely I call it a lost art. My grandfather passed away last week. Is a few days shy of 104.
Wow,
You know,
wow,
and
those are
one
good
of
genes. That's a
he's
good gene.
he's and he left with all of his original organs, which is even more impressive. So,
Wow,
never had a surgery. Well, he had a stent put in his heart, but
yeah, I want to be a productive one.
it was a I'll have to tell this because it's funny. He had a heart attack when he was 97, and he was working. He was farming, plowing, and everything, and he was taking the weights off the front of the tractor, and he was pulling them, and he's like, "Oh, that feels weird," and he kept working for 3 hours by himself, and he gets back home and tells my grandmother, I must have pulled a muscle on my chest, and she's like, "Doing this," and she's like, "He's like." Well, yeah, like, that should be your back. Let's go to the doctor. And the doctor's like, Harold, you had a heart attack and you are currently having a heart attack right now. And he's like, this is if there's a phrase that defines the greatest generation, it says, he's like, well, it felt kind of funny. I'm like, who describes having a heart attack as feeling kind of funny? They put a stent in his heart, and he tried to leave the hospital to go back and let the cows out in his nightgown. They're like, you're having a heart attack. Stop it. And he's like, you should stop farming. He's like, if I stop farming, I'll die.
Wow.
And that's the truest phrase because but all that's funny and all, but I remember in his house, is the one thing that man got was sleep. And I mean, and I remember as a kid visiting, as an adult visiting, is they go to bed at like 8, and you don't see him again. And I mean, he gets up early, he does, because he's out farming, but he'd go to bed on a reasonable time and get up at and still get that 7 to 8 hour window in there for his entire life.
Yeah.
And
Well,
but
nothing.
I think the biggest thing is that he also kept going, and I think that's the last thing I wanted to touch on is the kind of the quitter's mentality, I guess. And I know you're a ranger, and that's just not even in your vocabulary, but it's it's even the little things of where I use my granddad as an example of he stopped officially, like, could not go out to the farm and do anything earlier in the summer. So for the last 4 or 5 months of his life, he was living in his home. But as remarkable as that is, it did. His body said, "And we're shutting down," and he went off peacefully. It was nobody was shocked. I mean, he's 104, but I think within that though is he just kept going, and he had the mindset of, oh, I can't stop, and I think we all need that. And if we're a veteran out
Yeah.
there, or just a person, and you're like, oh, I just can't do this
Let
job
me tell you
anymore.
something else. One more little life hack that
Yeah,
ties
go
into
ahead.
being is I tell my class that never touch the snooze button.
Yeah.
The snooze button is an evil little button that makes you relive the worst part of every day over and over again. Now,
Oh, that's a great line. I'm stealing that.
yeah, run with that one. It always gets a good laugh. But snooze almost about 10 minutes. So I tell people, your head is bobbing, you're taking those little micro naps, you're driving, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's your body saying, stupid, stupid. You should not be driving a vehicle right now. So you take a 10-minute nap. The alarm goes off, kind of a startle response. But as far as sleep deprivation goes, a 10-minute nap was a total waste of time.
Yep.
Take a 30-minute nap. The alarm goes off. You're bleary and you're groggy. You don't want to get up because you're asleep. It takes 30 minutes to fall deep cycle. I don't want to get back up, get asleep.
Yeah.
And so any nap less than 30 minutes. Now, Dr. Walker's book, he talked about 25 as a cutoff, but just shoot for 30 minutes, a minimum nap. And so there's a study recently, the snooze alarm is good for you. And you look at the study, they were doing a 30-minute snooze. Nobody does a 30-minute snooze.
Yeah. I'll do 9. Every clock I've ever done 9.
What goofball research?
Yeah.
What's the purpose behind this? So and I tell people, get a 10-minute snooze, another snooze, a third snooze. You just threw away 30 minutes of the day.
Yep.
They're no as far you anybody in the room with you. They're no as far as sleep goes, no as far as your life goes. You just threw away 30 minutes of the day. That adds up to 3.5 hours a week. That adds up to 2 pure, beautiful nights of sleep every
Yeah.
month, 24 nights sleep every year. That's thrown away with that stupid snooze
Yeah.
button. And it really comes back to self-discipline. Am I in charge of my body? Is my body in charge of me?
Yeah.
My grandson graduated from basic training, and I went to my grandson's basic training, and he's heard, and he's heard my class, and I said, Grandpa, on the first morning, the drill sergeant taught us, you can get straight to hell out of bed when you need to. That's one of life's great lessons. That's a lesson
So
every
true.
veteran knows. Don't lose that. That's
Yeah.
what makes us who we are.
Right.
Don't lose that. And don't let somebody else do that to you. And what I tell people, I'm deadly serious. I'd say, set your alarm for 10 alarms, 6 o'clock, 6:01, 6:02, 6:03, 6:04, 6:05. And by the time you turn them all off, you're up.
Yeah.
Really, if the first decision of every day is the most important decision.
Yep.
Do I surrender to my body, or do I take charge and get the hell out of bed?
Yeah.
And
I think
full cycle of the dog. That's when the alarm goes off. I usually got 2 dogs that sleep a bit. When the alarm goes off, they're up, but there's no
yeah.
going back to bed with
Yeah.
them.
You get that paw on the face, you're like, okay, fine, I'm getting up.
That's right.
So
Exactly.
my old dog used to do that to me. I think Admiral McCraven, is that I get his name, his speech for the University of Texas graduation, the commencement speech. He talked about the 10 traits of being a SEAL, or 10 lessons in life,
Yeah.
and he related everything back to buds or all that. And
Yeah.
the first one is get out of bed,
Yeah.
and then make the bed. So you have
And when I first heard that, make the bed, I thought, no, that's kind of goofy, kind of like and we heard things. But then, I'm in hotel rooms,
yeah,
and it's not, about 200 nights a year. I roll out of bed, and the first thing you do is just pull up the covers. It's not big. You make
yeah,
order out of chaos. The
right,
first act of every day is get out of bed and make order out of chaos.
yep,
Just because I'm in there, I don't want it to, it's not, the drill sergeant's never going to prove it, but
yeah,
it's a bit tidy. I can lay myself up on it, and you make order out of chaos is one of the
yeah.
first steps of every day.
It's funny
Uh,
you mentioned that, because when you're in the army, then you come home, you start doing like little army things, or any military branch, those things at home. Like there for a small period of time, I used to roll my socks the same way as I did in basic. And then I realized this is way too much work at home, or but I changed how I folded my clothes and whatever, and I reorganized my closet, a few things, and that stuff comes and goes with people, and that's fine. But my bed is one thing that I've always made my bed a certain way since I joined the army, and it's for the exact reason, is that I can have World War III in my bed, and get up in the morning and just go, and it's like perfectly straight, like the way I have it done. And it's funny, because it's and I actually started doing that really after I heard that speech. I was like, oh, it can't be that fulfilling. I'm like, why is making my bed so freaking fulfilling? Like, why is this simplest? Takes me 3 seconds,
Order
you
out of
know,
chaos.
because like
Be
when
your
I'm
first
when
act of
I'm
every day.
if I'm the only person in the bed, the other side's never touched.
Right.
And this is my little triangle of blankets, all it is. So it's really funny how um the psychology of accomplishment, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and it's like, and he's very right with that. And I wanted to test. There's a whole lot more to his speech, obviously. If you haven't heard that
Yeah.
out there, listen, definitely encourage you to watch that. But it's um pretty fascinating. But Dave, I'm going to kind of wrap things up here a little bit, because I definitely want to come back. I'm in the middle of on combat, and some fascinating things in there that I would like to hit, and some other things on spiritual combat as well. We can have a different episode for that.
Can I
If you're
touch just on spiritual combat, just
yeah,
some past, you know, I tell my cops, I tell my military, I tell my first responders, this is not about religion. It's about resolving one of the great existential questions. How can a loving God allow such terrible things to happen? And I just need people to understand that everybody's going to die,
yeah,
and very few deaths are truly good. But here's the key: we are not God's puppets. A loving God wouldn't use you as his puppet. The evil one will make you his meat puppet right now. But God loves us enough to let go. You ever heard Dale saying, if you truly love something, let it go, it comes back at yours. That's how much God loves us.
Mm-hmm.
And so he lets us make our own decisions. And a lot of people make bad decisions. And you say, God, do something. He says, I did. I sent you.
Yeah.
And so that's
It's a
this
great line.
existential thing that you got to understand. The loving God is not going to manipulate every bit of every life out there. He gives us the freedom to make our own decisions, and people make bad decisions. And we need people like you out there to make the world a better place in the face of all these people making bad decisions.
Well, let's on that note, definitely want to kind of end this, but I would like one last parting comment is, if you're a vet out there, or a person that's, not assuming all listeners are only vets, but and you're struggling, and you're sleep deprived, or you're alcohol dependent, or just feel like life's crumbling down on you, if you were to do one step as the I guess in this is the victim, and also one step is if you're a veteran, I always say, look, man, putting your phone number on Facebook, say, hey, if you need help, give me a call, is good and great. Life is going good for you, but the person that's on the other end, that's life's falling apart, is probably not going to call you and say, hey, Bob, my life's falling apart. I'm a more of a proactive, like, hey, call your friends. Like, I'm in a group chat with my platoon from 2006. I think there's 16 of us in this group, and then there's about another 20 that are 1 degree away that we stay in touch with. They just don't want to be in the group because the notifications never end. I think we average like 100 messages a day,
Wow.
and but if someone is normally there in the group and they're interacting, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, so and so hasn't responded or liked or smiley face or sent a stupid gif or a meme in like a month. So like somebody will just off to the side, like, hey, dude, you good? Like, what's going on? He's, oh man, it's been really busy at work. I haven't had time to get the phone out. All right, cool. So make sure you're okay. And like we have this like multiple angle of way to be accountable. And I encourage anybody that to have that. Like, you're not alone, and in your thinking of like this stuff that we go through, and to get your boys, to get that fire team, to get that squad, platoon, whatever element it is, whatever you call it, to group text is the greatest thing ever invented. It really, really is. And if you have that one friend that has an Android, I'm sorry, they mess it up and put the green text in there, but but it's better than nothing. So start there, if anything. And if you're struggling, don't hesitate to seek help. There's a billion different resources out there, and I encourage you to call one of them and start there. Call me. My number's on my website. I don't hide it. I will answer the phone. I don't If I don't know you, it doesn't matter. We'll talk all night long. The counter to sleep deprivation, but we'll figure that out. So, but Dave, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it, and we'll definitely have to come back and do round two. And if you a new listener and you haven't read any of Dave's books, I would highly encourage you to check it out. It's a vast amount of information to process. You may have to do what I did and read it twice, and we'll go there. So thanks a bunch, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Travis. God bless. God bless America.